Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I have a fun little doodling video. So I got the idea to make this video when I was setting up my June bullet journal or playing with some ideas for my June bullet journal, and it is going to be roses for two reasons. First of all, they are my favorite flower, always have been, especially red roses. And also it is the birth flower of the month of June, and my birthday is in June. So if that isn't kismet, I don't know what is. So I really wanted to use the roses for my bullet journal, and then when I was doodling them, I realized, wow, this might be some useful information for some people out there who are just getting into doodling. So that is what we are doing today. So on the example page, you can see the different pens and things that I used to doodle my roses. So I will be showing you all of the different pens and the techniques I use to draw a rose with the different pens, and then also just some leaves, because I tend to use my florals with some leaves like together to create a cute little composition and design. So these are all the examples, and let's just get right into it. So I'm using Canson, oh, that's upside down, Canson Montval watercolor paper, because I will be using markers and actual watercolor. So it's just easier to use watercolor paper, and it even takes the fine liner really well. So that you don't have to use specifically Montval, you can use any watercolor paper, and for this you don't need the expensive stuff. You can just use very basic. This is very cheap. This is not 100% cotton. I think it's a cellulose paper, so anything cheap, even a notebook, will be fine, especially because it's just doodling, so it's not that important what kind of paper you use. Okay, so let me get my first clean page. The first one I will be showing you today is just drawing with a fine liner pen. So that is this first one here. So I used the Artline 0.4 for this one, but you can use Pigma Microns. I've used the Staedtler fine liners, anything like that. And it will be a good idea to use archival waterproof ink, because that makes it really easy to color the little doodles that you draw. Okay, so actually I think I'm going to zoom in a little bit more onto my paper. Okay, there we go. So for doodling or drawing the rose, I feel like this is the easiest one. You will start with a circle. Okay, so draw your circle. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then as soon as you come back to where it connects, you're going to keep going and make your first little petal. So from here, you will kind of, with not a very sharp point, but a rounded point, then you will go back here, and as soon as you reach the other end, again, back to the middle of the other part. So you will continue that shape until you have the center of your rose. So let's continue. And for these, it is important not to make them completely round. They should have like irregular shapes. And there you have the center of the rose. Now you can just add the petals that go around. So I usually start with smaller little petals, And it also depends on how layered and intricate you want your little doodle to look. So you can start again immediately from here, but I like to kind of spread it around. It makes it a little bit more natural. And that was actually too smooth of a line. It's better to like wiggle it a little and give lines that are not so perfectly smooth. And there you go. This is very easy to do, but especially the center took a few tries for me to really get the smooth movement of it and the smooth shape. So actually, let's do one more together. The circle. And as soon as you get there, so each time you come to the edge, you make a small little circular shape point, and then you just continue your spiral. And you add your little extra petals. This is very therapeutic to do because as soon as you get the shape down, it's very fast, very easy, and it becomes very, very zen and very meditative to just go around in circles and just draw. The other thing is you're going to have to learn when to stop because you can just keep going. That is one of the biggest struggles for me when I doodle roses, is to stop with the petals. Okay, so that is our fine liner. The next one I will be showing you is using a watercolor brush marker. So this was a very, very affordable one that I got at an art store here in Korea. So bonjour, mon ami. Mon ami actually has a lot of different types of stationery and is quite affordable. But yeah, you can use any type of brush pen. So for this, what is important is that, let me just focus here, is that you should get a brush pen that has actual bristles. I will show you one with a felt tip later. So if that's all you have, that's fine. But for this one, I found that having a marker with actual bristles works the best. Okay, let me just ruin that nib a little bit. Let me just get that. Okay. So for this one, you basically follow the same sort of shape, but instead of going all in the same direction, you're going to vary your strokes. So you're going to start with a little C shape like that, and then another little C shape or comma stroke the other way around. And then you can see where the little opening is between them here. So with this one, I struggled a lot when I was learning it. And don't worry about symmetry and exactly where each stroke goes. Follow a circular pattern and vary the direction of your strokes. And in the middle, it should be very thin, fine strokes. So until you have a little size of center that you would like. You can also make this bigger or smaller depending on how big you want your doodle to be. And then you go with thicker strokes. So this is why I love the brush pens. You can very easily make the thicker strokes. And you can come at it from any angle and just press down and the brush will fan out. So what I like to do when I use this method is kind of stop here And then we're going to fan out the petals with water and a tiny little brush. So that is how I got this effect here. So you use a tiny brush with some water and you fan it out a little bit and you diffuse the watercolor to get that very faint color. So that is what we will do now. So for this, I like a really tiny brush. So I'm using I don't know how to say this is Korean brand. Hwahong? Number 4 700R. But you can use any small brush. Okay, then what we're gonna do, oh, I need a tissue. Okay, here we go. You dip it into your water. You get it, make sure it's nice and saturated, but not too wet. So you can kind of dab it onto a tissue a little to get the most of the water off. And then you come at the edges. And actually, I said that the paper isn't that important, and it's not. You can play around with whatever you have. But I found that this Canson Montfort, the selling point of this paper is that it's very easy to lift up the color. So it's easy to blend out marker that you've already put down. So you blend it out like so. And you just continue going around the edges with your water. You can, of course, use more water and see what kind of effect you get. It's really fun. You can see I just went quiet because it's just so fun. Okay, so then you can blend that out. You can also, if you want, drop that, you can render the insides with a little bit of water as well. If you would like to maybe smooth it out or get a few more lighter details. Because your brush will pick up some pigment when you blend this out. So you can add a few more little lines if you wish. Okay, so that is with the watercolor brush marker. This is one of my favorites and it's definitely one of the easiest. Okay, next we're going to be using a Crayola Super Tip. So the normal ones, they have a white barrel. These are scented ones. They were extra that came with this pack. But they have really nice colors. So I'll be using this dark red one. But it's just a normal Crayola Super Tip. So the Super Tips have focus, please. The Super Tips have a smaller nib than the traditional Crayola markers, but it's the same shape. Okay. So for this one, we will very much follow the same method of creating the spirals, but instead of having, like, you don't have those little bristles. So what you'll do is you will draw and just scribble them. So I just come around and make the thickness or the size that I would like. And if you want really thin, fine lines, you just use only the tip of the marker and you can get really thin lines. But for this purpose, I will scribble it a little bit thicker. So there you start again with these two little C curves, and then again you just keep encircling it. And like I said, don't worry about symmetry. Like if you do one here, you have to do one here. Don't worry about that because that actually makes it look unnatural. just go very randomly around in a circle. And again, you can make these as thin or as thick as you would like, but start out with thinner lines. Okay, then when you reach your desired size, you will draw. So here we started going with thicker petals. So you will just draw those in. And color. I really love Super Tips. Their colors are pretty. They color very evenly. And they're very affordable. For the most part, depending on where you live. Okay, so then you just create your petals and you color. And kind of make irregular wavy lines. Vary the shapes of them. And color. Should I make this one thicker? Okay, I think I'm gonna make my last big petal. So like I said, it's really hard to know when to stop with roses. And don't try to make them symmetrical. Again, I will repeat that. Don't worry about symmetry. Real flowers are not symmetrical. Okay, so there you have your Crayola marker. The next one is also a marker, but it will be the felt tip brush marker. So this does not have any bristles. The Zig brushables are actually some of my favorites for lettering as well. They look very similar. I haven't used a Tombow deal tip marker. That's very popular. I haven't used those. They're not available here in Korea, but these are, and the tip is kind of similar in shape. So this does not have bristles. It is a felt tip. So for this one, I like to move the page around so that I can come at it from different angles. Because it doesn't have bristles that will fan out, you kind of need to maneuver it a little bit more, at least for me. So same thing as here. You start with your little C curves. So see, from this side, it was really easy for me to do that. But when I go like that, I never get the right shape. So then I turn my page. And I come at it from this way. So you want to point your brush in that direction and then pull and then go back so you can get the fine point at the end of that. So this is a little more fiddly because you have to like move your page around. Maybe you can figure out how to do it without doing that, but I haven't as of yet. This is the easiest way for me with a marker, this type of marker. So that way, and then they are still really pretty though, and I like the effect. And then again, when you need to thicken up the lines, you can just draw over each other, over the lines. I really love these Zig brushable pens. And I think I'll end with this. I think this one is more in danger of becoming symmetrical because you kind of go from side to side. Actually, let's do the last petals here. And you can see that the edges are a little smoother. So it's a different style than the other two. It has more smooth edges. This is water-based. Okay, no, it is waterproof, so you cannot render it, unfortunately. Or, you know, that's a good thing if you want a light, fast pen. But if you want the more irregular edges, then all you have to do is just, you know, wiggle to create that. Or you can keep the nice, smooth, crisp lines, depending on the style that you are going for. Okay, so you can see that the shape is not, I feel like I want to keep going, but I know if I do that, I just won't stop. So I will leave that one there. Okay, the last one will be with watercolor. And I think that this one might be the most difficult for most people. Or at least it was quite difficult for me. So you need to activate your paint. So I'm going to continue using a red. So my watercolor palette is this 48 pan Mungyo, also Korean brand, which I really love. And it has really nice colors. So I'm using this basic red. So you want to saturate it. And when you do the center of your flower, you want a little bit less diluted paint. So a little bit more pigment, a little bit thicker. Sometimes I will even just dip it directly into the cake and then use that to start the center of my flower. So for this, you need a round brush. You can use a bigger or smaller brush depending on how you find it easier to paint. Because a round brush, you can still get the really fine strokes if you just use the edge of it. I like a smaller brush. So round brush, load it with paint. And then it is very similar to these, especially this technique. So you start with your little C curves. But one thing I realized when I do my watercolor roses is that I am much more free with the shape. So you just continue creating small strokes in a circle, broken little lines, until you get to the desired shape. And then from here, I don't reload as of yet on my brush. I start making a little bit thicker strokes. And if you see that you don't have, like I'm feeling like I don't have enough pigment or water on, but the brush is a little bit too dry, then I don't add any pigment. I just dip very lightly into my water. And from here on out, you don't want to pick up too much pigment again. Mostly just reload, or not reload, but just dip back into the water. Or if you do dip back into your pigment, dilute it with lots of water so that you get a much lighter effect from here. And again, the same technique as when we did the watercolor brush pen is you kind of wiggle it around to get the more irregular shape. I just dipped back into water didn't get more pigment. And there you go. So you can leave it at this, or you can do the same thing as with the watercolor brush pen, and you can dilute and diffuse the edges even more. So I actually do like doing that. I like the effect that that gives. So then you add only water, and you can pick up a little bit more water to do this. And only on the edges blend it out using your water. And there you go. So those are my favorite ways of drawing or doodling roses. So just one more time to recap. This is fine liner 0.4. So you get different nib sizes. I like to use a medium, like 0.3, 4, or 5. So that's that one. This one is a watercolor brush marker. Crayola super tip. Kiritaki Zig brushable. And watercolor paint. So this video is a little bit long already, so I think I'm going to make a different video for the little leaves. And if you're interested in learning how to do that and you found this helpful, I will see you again in that video. So thank you much for stopping by. I hope that this helped you in your doodling and that you can find some cute and creative way to use your new rose doodles. Thanks everyone, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.